Bonjour, Nindawe McGonagall, and welcome back to the Twilight Zone. I apologize that I haven't been posting more regularly. Things have been a little crazy, and I've been trying to really decide on what it is that I want to share with you guys moving forward. There's so much ground to cover, so I thought I would pop on here and kind of shoot from the hip. I don't really have a script prepared, which was my intention from the beginning. When I started this channel, I was like, oh, I'm not going to do scripts, but also, I don't want people to be bored and I don't want you to lose attention. And so I don't know. We'll figure it out. But what I wanted to come to you tonight to discuss is some concepts about grace and neuroplasticity and how grace potentially rewires our brains. And I cheated. I can't believe I did this, but I was really stuck trying to like get to that next level, thinking about what is the other piece of grace that we really want to like focus on? And so I used ChatGPT, or yeah, I used an AI tool because I wanted to just see what it would say about grace if you extracted the paradigm of religion from any of those concepts. And I was really pleased that there were some things that came up with regard to that neuroplasticity and the way that it rewires our brains. As we know, or maybe you don't know, you have a brain, you have a heart. Your heart is a brain, your gut is a brain. And so those three organs interact with each other to try and keep us safe, to try and help us navigate the world, and the craziness of the world. So I'm really excited to share with you a few things that came out of that search. So let me just pull those up here real quickly. I'm going to be reading these, so pardon me for that. So one of the things that it talked about was the neurobiology of compassion and forgiveness. Now, you've heard me say on a couple of occasions that I really believe that forgiveness and grace are separate entities. Forgiveness is transactional, grace is relational. Forgiveness also involves the ego. There's a bit of, I will grant you this ability to, have this forgiveness if you do these things. And uh, nothing wrong with that. It's absolutely common and acceptable for that to be the way that we practice forgiveness. But at the end of the day, that is a transaction, that is an emotional and a mental transaction, and it is very much based on the ego. Whereas grace, grace is more relation related to the soul, where you give someone that a kindness in knowing that you potentially will need that kindness paid back at some point in the future. Now that's not exactly transactional. I think some people could argue that it is. It's like, are you doing this for good karma? Or are you doing that because it's the right thing to do in this moment? Either one of those situations is acceptable, and I think normal for how we navigate the world as human beings. So when I want to keep us as much focused on the concept of grace separate from forgiveness. I think we'll definitely talk about forgiveness. And if you have something that you want to share about forgiveness in the comments, I'm 100% open to those comments and any wisdom that you can bring to this conversation as well. All right, so back to this um this document that I generated. So it's interesting that this talks about several brain regions are involved when we experience or extend grace. The prefrontal cortex, this area governs rational thought, empathy, and impulse control. When someone chooses to extend grace, the PFC is highly active, particularly the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which is associated with moral reasoning and emotional regulation. And then there is the anterior cingulate cortex. This plays a role in error detection and conflict resolution, helping us navigate difficult emotions like resentment or the urge for revenge versus forgiveness. Again, coming back to that, the word forgiveness. And I think it's really interesting that that the AI put together this dichotomy of revenge versus forgiveness. And if I'm thinking about what is a similar dichotomy with grace, I'm wondering, is revenge the opposite of grace? I don't think it is. I mean, the word that comes to mind is bitterness, but that's not necessarily an action. It is, but it's not. Well, maybe it's not. Yeah, it's not an action. It can be carried out as an action. Anyway, getting away from myself here. Um, but that's something to think about too, right? Is the error error detection and conflict resolution, which I mean, I've mentioned before that grace is a huge component in restorative justice practices. Also, the next one is the amygdala, the brain's fear and threat center. When someone holds on to anger or resentment, the amygdala remains highly active, increasing stress. Extending grace, this says through forgiveness or emotional acceptance, has been shown to reduce amygdala activity, lowering stress and anxiety. And I think I think that tracks if you think about how to extend grace, when you extend grace, what happens, you feel more peace when you give that, when you willingly have reasoned out giving that grace and being okay with it, that you're going to experience less stress and have the physical component of less stress as a result of that. So that's very interesting. And then something I'd never really heard of before. I mean, I'm kind of a nerd, but not really. Mirror neurons. These neurons help us feel what others feel, making empathy and understanding possible. Grace requires us to recognize another person's struggle or flaws and respond with kindness rather than judgment. So that's a really also, I think, powerful statement, bringing in the word judgment. And perhaps that is um, the action word that I was looking for earlier in the comparison, the dichotomy between forgiveness, forgiveness and revenge. Maybe that's grace and judgment, right? Because if you let someone experience your grace, or if you give yourself that grace, then you step away from that judgmental approach to relationships. So that was really interesting. I think that was good too. It goes on to say, like, it's a key insight. Practicing grace activates higher order cognitive and emotional regulation systems, reducing the dominance of fear and stress responses, which, yes, oh my God, we need that times a million. We need something that allows us to reduce the fear and stress responses because what the hell is going on in the world, right? Okay, so this next part is the neurochemistry of grace. The act of showing or receiving grace is linked to the release of key neurochemicals that promote well-being. Oxytocin, dopamine and serotonin, cortisol reduction, all of those, when you think about reducing stress and reducing fear, that tracks. You're going to have Well, at least you're going to see a reduction in cortisol. And then potentially, if you are doing it properly, you'll see an increase in your dopamine and serotonin. What this says is grace-related behaviors such as letting go of resentment or performing acts of kindness increase dopamine and serotonin levels, leading to feelings of joy, peace, and emotional stability. So I think I've said in a I believe I've said in a previous video that grace leads to peace, and you can't be fully embodying grace without peace, and vice versa. So, them mentioning that peace as a outcome of extending grace, I think is really important, and hopefully that tracks with you guys as well. I think I want to talk about in the future the power of joy as well as part of the embodying of grace as our superhuman power. Joy is something that we don't really spend a lot of time. We're not really taught how to live in joy. We're not taught how to specifically target looking for those moments of joy when they happen spontaneously. I don't even know that we're really great at recognizing that it's joy. I mean, I think and please correct me if you think I'm wrong. I think we have a tendency to maybe categorize that as excitement. Um, there are a few other words that we use to label it, but what is joy? And how does joy um, help us to become um, more whole as human beings and then lead us to also grace? So that's hopefully another episode. Oxytocin, I mean, I think this makes a lot of sense as well known as the bonding hormone. Oxytocin promotes trust, empathy, and emotional connection. Acts of grace trigger oxytocin release, reinforcing social bonds and reducing fear. Again, reducing fear, very, very important there. So you've got your neurochemistry, you've got your neurobiology associated to grace. And then this is, I think, really interesting and feeds into a little bit. I think I'm going to expand. I hope I'm expanding on it more. Is why are humans wired for it? The title of this section is The Evolutionary Rule of Grace. Why are humans wired for it? So, from an evolutionary perspective, grace-like behaviors helped humans form stronger social groups, resolve conflicts, and increase survival rates. Hmm. The tend and befriend response. Psychologist Shelley Taylor's research suggests that in response to stress, humans, especially women, often seek social support rather than fight or flee. Grace plays a role in repairing relationships and maintaining group harmony, ensuring collective survival. Um, Kin selection and reciprocal altruism. Evolution favors behaviors that strengthen social bonds. By extending grace, humans build trust, which increases cooperation and social cohesion, key for survival in early human societies. And back to the mirror neurons, mirror neuron system and empathy. Sorry, you can tell I'm squinting. I don't have my glasses on. Our ability to feel others' emotions, allows for compassion, forgiveness, and healing, all of which are elements of grace that make human relationships more stable and resilient. So, I think I'll put the links in the bottom, like, if I remember, of the description. I made it. I was like, I I did the prompt, got this information, and then I said, "Tell me what references you have, what academic references that you have for this that you just presented to me," because I think if we're going to use AI, we need to make sure that we understand where the data is coming from and that it's not just an amalgamation. So I'll put those in the description. But so we've got the neurobiology, the neurochemistry, and why we are wired for grace as that healing salve that can help us restore faith and trust and love within our communities, and also why that's our superpower. And I think I was really excited to see to see the way that the AI tool had, you know, addressed my inputs. I'm still kind of torn about using AI for a couple of different reasons, but I'm grateful for what it helped me to share with you and also for me to build on when I'm thinking about strengthening the reasonings of and the evidence of how grace is our superpower. It's not just a nice to have. It is something that when we learn how to embody it, we're pretty much indestructible. Um, and it's super called for during these stressful and fearful times. Those energy vampires, man, they're out there creating as much fear as they can because they just thrive on it. And that's that's not humanity empowering. So I wanted to get on and just share this with you really quickly. Um, I do have some more episodes planned. I hope that you really like this. I'm also going to do some shorts because I think shorts, people respond more to the shorts, kind of. Anyway, it gets more eyes on it. Which if I'm, honest, I don't care if you see my face. I care that I give you these words and that these words spark something inside of you and lights up your superhuman, fires inside of your soul. That's what I really hope for. And then when you get lit up, then you can go tell other people, get them lit up. And then we're just going to start a grace wildfire. Anyway. Um, so that's it. Giza again. I love you. And Bama P.